Hello and a warm Collisions YYC. Welcome to my guest this morning, Miss Sandra Clarkson. How you doing, Sandra?
I'm great, Tyler. How are you today?
I am lovely. We're in that May. This will be aired in the future. We're already in the future, but it's that day when the minus 20 turned to minus 10 and it's going to plus 5. I'm very happy.
Hallelujah.
God damn, that was cold for too long. I had just about enough. I don't like to complain about weather. I like to talk about the weather, but I try not to. That was getting to the edge of my rope, and I think many Calgarians would share in that experience. This too shall pass, but it lasted like 2.5, 3 weeks.
Yeah.
Okay, enough about the weather. I can't resist. You are the CEO of the Calgary Drop-In Center, and we were introduced by a mutual friend, Israel Peck, and he's like, Tyler, you know who you need to talk to? And I usually just say yes. And we had an amazing conversation the other day, and I know of the Drop-In Center, but I don't know about the Drop-In Center. So give us the elevator. What's a Drop-In Center? Sandra, let us into the tent.
Well, the Calgary Drop-In Center is a lot of things, actually. And I think there's a lot of people don't know the extent of the programs and services that we offer. You know, if you drive by our building, you'll see a big banner that says more than emergency shelter. And that's exactly what we are. So we have programs and services across the spectrum for people experiencing homelessness. So we've got prevention and diversion programs, ideally helping people get reconnected to supports in community without ever having to enter the shelter system at all. If they do need to come in, we are a low barrier housing focused shelter. So that means anybody is welcome. There's no sobriety requirements. There's behavioral requirements in terms of safety, etc. But our doors are open to everybody 24/7, 7 days a week. We never close our doors. So that's our emergency shelter piece. And everything we do there is intended to lead to a positive housing outcome. And then we also have housing support workers, housing case managers. We own and operate 3 mixed market apartment buildings as well. And then we have our donation center, which collects hard goods, so housewares, bedding, computers, furniture, you name it, we'll take it. And then we redistribute it to people who are starting back out in terms of building their home at no cost.
It's amazing. You think about just moving, even as someone who's going from a home that you have to another home, the cost and the hidden things you don't think about. It's very real.
Well, it's one thing to get someone housed into, a new home. But if they have no furniture, the chances of them staying housed are probably pretty slim.
Yeah.
And when your resources are tight, we want to try to make it as simple for people as possible. And it also prevents things going to the landfill that otherwise, people are getting rid of. So we very much rely on the generosity of Calgarians for all of those goods.
We were joking. I was joking very nonchalantly about minus 30. That's with a roof over my head and walls around me. So I'm joking from a privileged position, and I know that. How's been the last month in Calgary with it's minus 25? Sleeping outside, that's no joke.
No, it isn't. And, as I said, our doors are always open. We'll never turn anybody away. Even if we're at capacity, we will find space. The risk of being over capacity is less than being exposed to the elements. So we really encourage people to come inside. But we recognize there's people that for numerous reasons are resistant to coming into shelter, whether they feel it's an unsafe environment or it's too chaotic, or, there's rules that they don't want to follow. There's no drug use or alcohol use on site. And sometimes the addictions are more powerful than the elements, I'm afraid.
Yeah, that's very real. What is capacity? When you say, what's the number?
Right now, we've got our main shelter facility downtown, and we also have a satellite shelter that's in operation right now.
Okay.
So we can shelter up to about over 1,100 people every single night.
That's a real number.
It is a real number. And with these cold temperatures, we're seeing numbers unlike previous years.
Okay.
So some of the
You
some
beat
of the
me to my
highest
next, you beat me to
numbers.
my next
Yeah.
question, because I think we all know there's a trend around housing crisis. It's a common term. And we've
Hmm.
got a city that had a lot of net new migration. There's a lot of factors. And sometimes I joke very nonchalantly, we're becoming a big city and we're getting some big city challenges that go along with it, right? Mhm.
Yeah, it's true. It's true.
Mm.
And
How do you, like, when you look over, how long have you guys been around? What's the history?
the DI's been around for almost 65 years.
Oh,
So
yeah.
it's been operating out of the East Village that entire time. So
Okay.
really a foundational piece of the East Village has been the drop-in center.
Mhm.
It's certainly evolved since that time. It really started out as a collaboration between a number of different faith-based organizations or churches to provide like a soup kitchen type of model. And then as homelessness started to increase, because it's a relatively new phenomenon,
Hmm.
um, they started out with just an overnight mat program for men, and then things continued to evolve, and the demand has surged as we are seeing today.
Relatively new. Talk to me about, I hadn't put any thought into, has this been around for a long time? I assumed it was just a modern day version of a problem that's always been the case, but no, relatively new. Talk to me about that. You kind of struck me, you struck a chord of curiosity on that one, Sandra.
Well, I think there's always been people where circumstances created situations where they
It's
may be
fair.
unhoused temporarily for short periods of time. But I think, what we're seeing today is the failure of multiple systems and policy decisions made 20, 30 years ago.
Interesting.
We there was the dismantling of the psychiatric institutional system into
Okay.
community-based services without any of those community-based services actually being available. Uh,
Sorry, I'm not laughing. I'm laughing at bureaucracy, not the problem. To be clear, I'm just like, of course we did that. Sorry.
yeah, and I think there's also gaps in the
Hmm.
child welfare system,
Okay.
correctional system, healthcare system. And at the drop-in center, we really are sort of the catch-all
Okay.
um, for people who have slipped through all of those cracks. And we really are an agency of last resort.
Hmm.
We often, when people come to us, they are experiencing their darkest days. They've experienced significant trauma in many cases.
Okay.
Um, and our goal is to be there for them and get them back into community and housed as quickly as possible. I think one of the key things about shelter is it's not a destination, it's a process.
Okay.
It should be a process to get back out into community. It's not a place to live.
Hmm. Dealing with the population that you deal with, uh, I appreciate that we want to, our process is to get you to get you housed.
Mhm.
And I think you used the word trauma, circumstances, obviously mental health, as we're becoming so much more comfortable and I think more commonplace to talk about it, which is great. You can't fix a secret. If you don't talk about something, you're not going to solve it. How does your organization play that balance of, like, we want to get you into a home, and there's clearly some mental health issues, there's challenges, there's other things that led you to be there. Just putting walls around the human doesn't always help those other issues. How do you balance those two things out?
I mean, that is a great point for many
Mm.
individuals who are a bit more complex, whether it be mental health, addiction, physical health issues.
Mm.
Um, it is more than just four walls and a roof that's
Yeah.
required. They need different levels of supports. And so we work very closely with our community partners
Mm.
that offer some of that supportive housing and community. Um, but the reality is, right now at the drop-in center, we've got about 120 individuals where there is no appropriate housing for them. It
Okay.
does not exist. So they remain in shelter because there are no alternatives for them.
You're kind of stuck in the system, right? In that way.
100%.
Yeah.
And you
Yeah.
know what? Are we serving them? Yes. Are we serving them well? No, I don't think so, because
You're not meeting
that's
their
not what
long-term objectives, or yours for that matter, in terms
it's
of
not
getting,
what
yeah.
we're
Yeah.
were designed to do or equipped to do. I'm glad they have a safe place to be and that
Hmm.
their needs, immediate needs, are taken care of. But we need the rest of the system to catch up with that 24/7 supports that are required for some really complex individuals.
Hmm.
And I think that, in addition to the opioid crisis and the toxic drug supply, has forever changed the work of
Hmm.
emergency shelter and the front
Okay.
line.
And has that been the last? Because obviously, that from a news cycle, the last few years, that's been much more prevalent. You've been in this role for, sorry, I was creeping on your LinkedIn, 7 years, 9 years, 9 years.
I'm in my ninth year. Yeah.
Pushing. Okay, we're going to say almost a decade. Just
Okay.
almost a decade. What have you seen change in that time in that time frame? Because in our cycle of our world, things change now. Feels like so much faster than what took 10 years now takes 10 months to shift, good or bad. Right? Often worse. I
Well,
would say often worse.
you know what? That's a really good point. I think, in 2018 was the first year we started tracking data around drug poisonings that were taking place
Okay.
in and around our facility. Um, so in 2018, we counted 87 drug poisonings in a 12-month period. In 2023, 2,400.
Oh, I was bracing myself for the number you were going to share. Oh wow.
Now, I'm encouraged by the fact in 2024 that numbers decreased by just over 50%.
Oh, so
Um,
23 from a high water mark and also from a news cycle, that kind of makes sense in my mind a little bit. If I think back to when it kind of hit that level of like, we got to do something about it. We can't just turn a blind eye to it because it's this group of people that is not us. The them situation, I think it became more of
mhm,
like, no, we are all on this on this ship together, right?
yeah,
Hmm.
yeah.
So
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 I
so
mean, I'm
50% drop. And is that what do you now? Sorry, I'm so curious. And now you become, if you don't have the answer, what any thoughts on what the driver was? Because that's a significant decrease.
It is, thankfully, a significant decrease. I think, there's lots of theories out there.
Hmm.
I don't believe that substance use or misuse has declined.
Yeah.
I do believe that it is likely directly related to the toxicity of the drug supply.
Okay.
And what's in those substances is continually changing.
Yeah, that's a whole other. That conversation's outside both of our.
Yes.
Yeah, sorry, my curiosity can't help. I'm like, that's a significant and it's moving in the right direction. It's great. So oftentimes you hear these numbers and they just continue to go up. Or
Mhm.
the problem, whatever it may be, continues to grow. Versus, that. And again, no judgment. These people are in those situations and they're self medicating, just as an over way to simplify that statement. But what they're
Mhm.
being sold or what they're getting access to is poisonous.
Indeed.
Hmm.
Indeed, it is.
Can't catch a break, eh? Like, geez, Murphy. um, so for you in this role, seeing the challenges go up, because you're a temporary solution. I'm hearing that loud and clear. We're a waypoint between somewhere and somewhere else. This is maybe the bottom, but we're here to get you back into another series of systems that elevate you. How well
Mhm.
do we? I'm going to say that boldly. Do we work together as those systems? And I guess if there's not another piece there to catch that individual, it's just not there. How collaborative is the space of the non-for-profit in Calgary? I've chatted to so many, and you're all working so hard to solve your problem, but the individual is wayfinding between so many different
Mhm.
variations of help that they need.
Well, I mean, it is a great question. And I would say, in terms of my experience, and of course, well, no, I am biased because I
I like a
live in
good bias as
Calgary,
much as the next person.
right? But I think our community in Calgary is probably one of the most collaborative environments that I've ever witnessed. I think um, we recognize, and the collective we being the individual service providers that
Mhm.
make up that we, recognize we can't do it by ourselves, right? And I think the leaders in this city lead without ego. I think we are in it for the people who need to access our services, and we put their needs first. And so it's not about any one agency or any one program. It's about getting people connected to the services that they need and not trying to hang on to people. right?
Yeah,
I think
it's a continuum of care model, and they
it
should be.
is.
Unfortunately, this isn't like business where you want to keep the customer forever. You want to service them, help them, and move them on to the next stage of their journey.
Yeah, I mean, you can't be all things to everybody, right?
The
And
3-in-1 printer was never a good idea. One of the things never worked. Like, let's come on, we all had one. It was one of the. It was like, oh, can it just do one thing well? I do appreciate the ability to focus and really understand the problem you're solving, and at the stage that that individual is at in their journey.
yeah, it's really important. I think, the other thing that people, I think sometimes often see the population of individuals experiencing homelessness as sort of one big group.
Yeah.
There are multiple different subpopulations experiencing that, and it's not a one size fits all approach. People have unique needs, need unique supports, and have unique journeys in order to exit and get back into community. And that takes a lot of creativity, perseverance, innovation, and collaboration, and kind of do whatever it takes
Yeah, yeah.
attitude.
And there is no one size fits. Like it is, we live in a world of personalization, and that's no different in your
Hmm.
world. Everyone's got their own unique set of circumstances that led them to being at your door. Just to put that as the common point of like, well, you all came to this door, how you got here, and taking the time and having the ability to understand that in its complexity, while still building a system that can move at scale. That's really tough to do. Like just
Yeah.
give it the respect that it's hard because it is hard. Mhm.
Yeah, I think, honestly, I think this is some of the hardest work out there.
Mm.
It's not always popular work. I think,
Yeah.
shelters often get blamed for the issues of homelessness, although we're there to
That's a
help
weird.
solve it,
That's a weird blame. That, anyways, yeah, I see what you mean. Because we don't
right?
understand, and we see something, and it's often something that makes us feel uncomfortable, so we push it away, and like that's
Yeah,
just part of sometimes the human condition. I don't understand it. I'm kind of fearful of it, so therefore I will shun it or be negative
yeah.
towards it. Versus, how do we solve the challenge? And this is maybe a silly question to even ask. Is there a solve, or is it more about, yeah, let's keep moving in the right direction, but in the meantime, let's make sure we have supports for all these individuals on this journey, because there is clearly no easy solve, or maybe we would have already solved it.
Well, I think it's actually an easy solve, to
Okay.
be honest, not to
Okay, good. Please
oversimplify it,
no,
not to
please.
oversimplify it, but you know what? Housing is the answer to homelessness. It's not rocket science.
Okay.
Pretty
Thank you.
straightforward, right? Now, it's not just housing, as we spoke about earlier. It's for some individuals, it's housing with supports.
Yeah.
And, I think one of my biggest frustrations right now is the amount of NIMBYism that we're experiencing in our
Okay.
city.
Yep.
Um, Nobody wants affordable housing in their neighborhood,
Yeah.
right? It's like, hell no, not here. But I think I challenge the citizens of our city to think about this. If you're saying no to affordable housing, you're saying yes to encampments, you're saying yes
Mhm.
to uh, rising visible homelessness, you're saying yes to increased social disorder. You can't have it both ways. So what,
Hmm.
I really think people need to think about, okay, by saying no and choosing no, what am I saying yes to?
That's a
And
powerful
that's
paradigm.
not spoken about enough, right?
Hmm.
And homelessness is a community issue. It's not a drop-in center issue. It's not a Calgary issue. It's not a nonprofit sector issue. It's a community issue, and all parts of the community have to play a part in that solution. And so that's my sort of soapbox speech.
Sandra, that
Uh,
was like, please step right up on. I love it. I thank you for being so passionate about that. And it's so easy to say no, but you're right. If you're saying no to this, what are you actually saying yes to indirectly or literally directly too?
mhm.
And is it just more education? Is it awareness? Is it as simple as just having more empathy? Or is it maybe taking those few minutes to not just go, nope, close, I'm just going to look the other way, and engaging in the problem? So even just what you said made me think about the whole thing differently. And that was a minute of just going, hey, what are you actually saying yes to? I've never heard it been posed. It's never been posed to me in that way.
Well, I think,
Hmm.
as I think about the DI and where we want to move to and what our is in our focus for the next short and long term vision. I think we need to do a better job of telling our story and who we are and what we do and what impact we make on community. And I want to talk more about the impact on community versus the individual, right? I think it's really easy to other
It is. Yeah.
vulnerable populations. And, there's compassion fatigue, empathy fatigue, donor fatigue. People don't want to hear about it anymore. And so it's really about, okay, how can we flip the frame and talk about the positive impact on community, on safety, etc., or what would community look like if the DI wasn't here?
Yeah.
That would be a very different downtown, let me tell you.
Yeah, no doubt. So interesting. And is you mentioned fatigue, and I think that are we also as a society, like I've also heard Calgary, so generous, so quick to step up, so quick to volunteer, so quick to support these causes. That in itself can become competitive because there's so much need and so much. But I really appreciate what you said about just donor fatigue, and we're getting tired of seeing the problem, not seeing any progress. I know myself as a business leader, like I want to see forward motion. When you don't, what do? You either lean in harder or you just go, okay, abandon this initiative, sunk cost fallacy. Let's go in another direction. But that doesn't change the fact that these are reality and these are humans in our shared communities having these challenges. How do you combat that as an organization? Just the reality, as I'm assuming fundraising is getting more challenging, it is competitive in that way. Lots of places to give our dollars that are all valid. How, how as an organization, as someone who's at the eye of the storm in that with your other community leaders, how do you combat that? Just trend that's maybe happening at a larger level?
Well, I think ultimately, we need to move away from a charity model, for one. Even the term nonprofit automatically makes us lesser than in a society that's driven by profit. And that's the symbol of success.
It is the ultimate scorecard that we all wave around. Right? You're absolutely right.
And so shifting the language around that to like social impact or social profit is something I think that's important. But I think ultimately, each of us in the nonprofit or social profit sector really need to be focused on impact and what is the change that we are affecting for individuals. And that's one of the things we've been really driving on at the DI. So when we made our housing focused transformation, so moving beyond just food, clothing, shelter, and hope you figure it out, which is what emergency shelters are funded to do. And traditionally, that's all they've done. Since that time, we've housed over 2,600 people. And so for us, it's all about flow, right? Getting people out of shelter, into housing, back in community, and living their best lives. Almost 70% of the people that we're housing without rental supports or without ongoing case management. I think there's a fallacy that people have that if you experience homelessness, you can't live without supports. Well, most people can.
70% is a real number.
Yeah, it's a circumstance. It doesn't define you as a person. And again, going back to your question, it's about focusing on impact and showing the effectiveness of programs and how many people have been able to end their experience of homelessness. The challenge we have is that the inflow is outpacing the outflow.
The front door is bigger than the
front. And so I think we need to be really focusing more on prevention, diversion work. The answer certainly isn't opening more shelters. It's about preventing people from entering the system in the first place, while also recognizing the need for more affordable and deeply affordable housing and housing with supports.
Going farther off stream and find out where people are falling off the bridge and why they're in the water, just instead of keep rescuing them out of the water. I heard that joke the other day. Why don't you walk upstream a little bit and find out where the hole in the bridge is that's causing this problem, and then we'll fix that versus just getting really good at fishing people out of the river. I don't even understand the context of the metaphor, but it made sense in that way. When you made that shift, just thinking back to even, I love I, for a long time, have been a subscriber to the kind of the Dan Pallotta method of why don't we treat the
Hmm.
charity sector much more like a business, and then we can
Yeah.
actually be more successful and attract more people, better people, and all that. When you decided to make that shift of like, no, we're a shelter and we just provide a short-term solution to no, we're going to provide housing. Was there pushback? Was that a challenge? How long ago was that? And any business or any organization that pivots their focus can be met with resistance. And there's a journey there. How long ago was that shift? And was it embraced, or was it like, whoa, get back in your lane? I'm being a little bit binary with this question.
Well, it's a great question. We really started talking about it in 2017, and it
Okay.
was early 2018. We made a declaration
Okay.
that we were going to become housing focused, and
We stuck the flag in the ground.
we stuck the flag in the ground. And yes, there was resistance. There was resistance on the board. There was resistance in the staff. There was resistance in the guests we serve.
So interesting, because from the outside, my limited perspective, it makes perfect sense. But that's not the way we do it around here. Like, that's such a thing
Right.
that happens as humans in any type of business, profit, nonprofit, startup. We're pivoting, or we realize something and we're going to take a stand. Not everyone stays along for that journey, right? And no
No,
right,
and that's
no,
okay.
and no right or wrong. Like, you can get off the bus as well, and you can get on the bus.
Yeah, and I mean, it's much better for people to get off the bus if
Yes,
they're going to be an obstacle for
yes,
sure.
I completely agree.
Um, and it's interesting, some of the conversations, like some of the guests, who had been essentially living in the building for 18 years
I could
at the
see,
time,
where that might be a jarring declaration for them.
right? And there was a lot of resistance for sure. But we were really creative. Like, the DI at the time really was a community in and of itself. So
Yep.
it was very comfortable, right? There was live music on Fridays. There was
Oh,
a
okay.
library cart that was pushed around, card games, movies on the screens, like art programs, really, really lovely
You
things.
weren't
Like,
motivating people to move on to other circumstances.
yeah,
From that perspective. Yeah, you created comfort, which again at the time was the right service mix for the model you had.
yeah, and not to be critical,
Yeah, no,
it was a time and place, and
sure.
so now the lens we filter everything through is, how does this contribute to a positive housing outcome? And
I really
so
like that.
even our health services that we have on site it's housing focused healthcare, right? So we don't want to create a dependency on the health services at the DI. Our goal is to connect people to primary care in community, and we really just provide episodic care and help to remove whatever barriers there might be from a health perspective that are keeping people
Mhm.
from getting housed. So everything we do is designed to result in a positive housing outcome. And that means there's a lot of things that we don't do.
Mhm. Like what you said earlier, if you're saying no to this, you're saying yes. But if you're saying yes to
Mm-hmm.
something, you're also saying no to something else. There's always an opportunity cost. But to hear what you said earlier of like the demand, the front door, if you didn't move to that model, you would have been so over capacity that there would be no chance to even cycle through new people that find themselves in the system. Like that would create almost a stuck in place model. I'm sure there was a part of that where we just don't have room to accommodate the increased need because we're not outflowing anyone into a successful outcome over here. Like that's not a sustainable model in the long run, to just look at it from the outsider's point of view.
No, I think then what you would ultimately seeing is increasing the number of shelters,
Yeah.
which, unless shelters are housing focused, doesn't really address the issue.
No,
It doesn't
it
result
doesn't.
in
It doesn't go
long-term
upstream
change.
or downstream farther enough. You get stuck in this part of the
Mm-mm.
river where there's just the water keeps flowing in and there's nothing flowing out. So we have to get more reservoirs. Huh. So I don't know why I got on the river metaphor right now. I'll switch it up. But you guys are right by the river, so maybe that's why.
That's
Um,
true.
I touched on a little bit of just in my words, not yours, the competitive nature of the funding. What's your model? Is it partly, is there some government funding in there, some private funding? What's the mix look like? How do you keep the whole wheel turning?
Well, it's a combination
Okay.
of things. We do, the majority of our funding, particularly for the emergency shelter programs, comes from the Ministry of Seniors, Community and Social Services.
Okay.
We do also receive funding from Recovery Alberta. So that's mental health and addictions through the province,
Okay.
and we operate a medically supervised detox program and recovery transition programs, as well as our episodic healthcare. We also have two paramedics on site 24/7. Um, and then outside of those two big pieces, we rely on, generosity of Calgarians, philanthropy, gifts in kind are really important. So that's like donated goods that we can use in our operations. We also do generate some revenue through recycling up at our donation center.
Okay.
If we can't redistribute it, we recycle it. But the goal there is to keep things out of the landfill and continue to upcycle things. And different fundraising opportunities that come up. We apply for a lot of grants and have a lot of loyal supporters that we're continually trying to up that number.
I'm sure it's a constant.
Yeah.
It's like, well, I'm on your donation. So donate, sponsor a meal. Donate from our Amazon wish list. Donate a vehicle. I'd heard that and I forgot about it. And obviously monthly. Do a lot of people give you vehicles? Is that a common? Does that happen? Does that happen?
That's a new initiative.
Okay.
So it's only a couple months old. I can't answer that question.
I didn't realize it was that new and shiny. Okay.
Yeah.
It's interesting. There's got to be a lot of criteria around that because sometimes you don't want someone. It's like going to the food bank and giving the beans out of your pantry. Come on, we can do better. So hopefully no one's donating you old beat up cars. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Come on, do a little bit better. This isn't giving someone something you don't want. That's not the.
That's right.
Not saying that's bad, but don't raid your own pantry and get rid of the slow moving goods for that. Same as if you're going to give a car, you would want it to be in fairly reasonable working order. Where have you seen any trends or any movement in the fundraising side of things? Like there's different generations coming into the mix that maybe value things differently, that are connected online way more than maybe a lot of the traditional donors or long-term donors have been. How are you guys meeting that? Like every business is dealing with that change, right? Our customers are always getting older and hopefully there's a bunch that are younger coming in, but they want different things and they engage for different reasons. What do anything you're seeing or tactics or strategies you've employed to deal with that?
Well, that's another great question. I think, the whole sort of philanthropic landscape has definitely changed and is evolving, just like everything is, right?
At the speed of light.
Yeah. I think even companies that, had used to do corporate matching programs, like those have evolved as well to be more self-determined as opposed to the corporate entity deciding where it's going. I think also younger generations are really looking for experiential
I was going to ask about the ability to volunteer. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Right. And are giving more of their time than money. Or it's a combination of both. And generally it's smaller increments and I think more widespread, more of a shotgun approach as opposed to picking one, but it's continually evolving, and I think that is a challenge that we all have who rely on the generosity of our communities, and volunteerism is also down. I think.
Oh, really? Okay, I haven't heard that.
COVID really shifted things. So pre-COVID, the number of volunteer hours that people contributed to the DI were the equivalent of about 95 full-time employees.
Okay, so which is about
95.
95, because that's 2080 hours a year is continued at full-time. Is it 2080 is an FTE?
Yeah. Yeah. And so
that's a significant number when you do the quick 2080 times 95.
Yeah. And so in COVID, because we were considered an outbreak site because we had two people who had tested positive, we were no longer allowed to have volunteers come in the building. So
it broke the pattern, broke the trend, it broke the habit.
Yeah, the impact on operations was significant. And so we are, slowly rebuilding those relationships, cultivating new relationships to increase that volunteerism aspect. In 2024, it was about the equivalent of close to 24 full-time
Oh, wow.
employees.
That's
So,
a significant drop.
oh yeah.
That's real. Oh, wow. Okay. I'm feeling the weight. You went from like basically
Hmm.
200,000 hours of volunteer time to 2080 to 50,000, which sounds like a big number, but not compared to 200. It doesn't.
No.
And have you had to
So
make that up with your own full-time staff? Because the demand, you still
yeah,
need those people.
yeah, the work still needs to get done,
Yes.
right?
Yes. I would argue probably
And
more, probably more, probably more.
yeah,
Oh, wow.
so
Okay.
yeah,
That creates
we've
some
found ways.
some real pressure for you guys.
Indeed, indeed. But one thing we're good at is pivoting. We
That has
certainly
been
were
the word of the
tested.
last 5 years is pivot, pivot, pivot. But yeah, it's just,
Yeah,
pivot's another synonym for survive, right?
it's true. So, we continue to be really creative. We're constantly recalibrating quality improvement, in efficiencies, etc. And, we're always trying new things, and it doesn't work every time, of course, but
That's why it's called trying new things.
yeah,
Yeah, the myth of like, oh, we're big on failure, but we don't fail around here. Like, come on, anyway. It's not even failure. Like, it's just you got to trip and fall. The older you get, the more you're like, oh yeah, I know it's trendy to say, but it actually is the way it needs to work. We're curious. I always love to ask this question: where do you look for inspiration? Is there other markets? Is there other parts of the world? Is there other versions of the way we do it in North America? Isn't the only way by far. Is there anything that you expose yourself to as a leader in this sector to go, wow, okay, taking snippets and taking little bites from what they do in other parts of the world?
I mean, yeah, of course, I think, the first thing that popped into my head when you asked about my source of inspiration, it's the people we serve, right? They're
Get close to your customer, right?
right, like they're some of the most courageous people, resilient people I've ever met in my lifetime, and you know, that's what keeps me going is when somebody's thriving in their own home, their new home. But in terms of thinking, vision,
Hmm.
etc., you know, I try very deliberately to have a pretty broad network, not just within Canada,
Hmm.
but also in the United States and over UK, Finland, etc.
Okay.
I think um, the unfortunate reality is this is not a North American problem.
Yeah.
Um,
My secret hope in that question is that somebody was doing it better, but I'm not hearing that, and I can't think of one. That's why I asked you.
well, Finland's done a great job,
Okay.
but they also have a very different social safety net
Yep.
system
It's a whole
than we do.
it's a whole different model. Back to your point of how decisions from 20 or 30 years ago have led to today, but there's
Yeah,
probably decisions from 20, 30 years ago in other jurisdictions that led to today being different in the other direction, right?
yeah,
Different social
yeah,
programs and a different sense of community and kind of maybe even a different mindset in terms of how they're even governed.
absolutely,
Mm.
absolutely. But there's always lessons that we can take,
Hmm.
right? To try to uh, adapt to our particular environment. And I think it's just have to continually keep learning, right? Keep learning and
Yes.
be bold. I think we have to be really bold because, again, like the solution is actually pretty simple.
Yeah.
If there was community will, political will, um, things could change actually pretty quickly.
Yeah.
But
In the
unfortunately,
span of a few
we're not
years.
there.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're
Yes,
not
you're
there
right.
right now.
And that's unfortunate because the problem, right? If you can't figure out an end result or a changed flow of where people circle through the system, you're just going to keep ending up with more I love what you said. The solution isn't more shelters.
That's right. It
Yeah.
is not.
It's not more band-aids.
It's more housing.
Yes. Yes, it is. Well, actually, I think that's from a national level and there's so many. Actually, I've got a conversation with an individual tomorrow who is out of the US, but they do modular and they
Hmm.
manufacture overseas, they bring in. And part of his position is like, everyone says that we need these solutions, but yet then the bureaucracy and the red tape doesn't allow it to move forward. And he also has a soapbox about we could solve these problems a lot faster if we would loosen up a little bit how we're allowed to do things with solutions that are proven and tested, that no one's getting put at
Hmm.
risk. What's getting put at risk is this is not the way we've always done it. I hate
Yep.
that. I want to
Oh,
take a
me
shot at
too.
that right away. As soon as I hear that, I'm like, oh, let's get out the bat and beat that down.
Well, I think when we spoke the other day, I did use an expletive around status quo.
You did.
And
We've kept it very PG on this episode today, Sandra.
well,
But I appreciate your passion, and I very much sense a level of drive, but also a hint of maybe frustration. Like, okay, stop with the status quo. We need to do things
yeah,
differently. I can hear the fire coming out, Sandra, a little bit.
it's not an option, right? Like we have an obligation to do things differently. The people we serve deserve that, right? And so, but it takes community. And I think, in terms of like the housing focused shelter piece, like, my goal is to build a movement across the continent. And we've got, we've spun up the Canadian Shelter Transformation Network, which is
Nice.
designed to do just that. So it's free membership, free resources, supports to help people make that shift. And if we're all rowing in the same direction, imagine how powerful that might be.
Yeah. Well, that's a fantastic.
To use your river metaphor.
Thank you for staying on point with our man. Don't mix your metaphors. We've got the river thing going on. You guys are right beside the river, so I'm going to stick with that. You've got a bit of a playbook though, 2018 till now, putting that out there and offering that level of guidance and inclusion to other shelters that are maybe pondering or playing around with like, you're something going on here. You've probably figured out a lot of some of that navigation and rivers and navigation, back to that navigation of helping them do that. And not everyone will be on board, but the ones that are, that's amazing that you're able to swoop in and go, hey, there's some support for you. If it took us 6 years to figure it out, let's get you figured out in 2 or whatever. I'm picking numbers here a little bit. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I mean, it's the interest is growing, and, even in terms of working with our provincial government, there's now housing focused language in the agreements, the funding agreements. It's an expectation, right? So that mind shift is taking place, and sometimes some pockets move slower than others, but at least people are talking about it. And
things never move as fast as most leaders want it to. I'm sensing maybe you and I similar. I'm like, okay, this is a good idea. Let's just do it right now. Oh, wait, we have to. I'm like, come on, let's go. But that's not.
And the data doesn't lie.
Yeah,
right.
Fair enough.
The data shows the efficacy of the model.
Has that been something for you that as an organization to really tracking and having that data? Because I know sometimes in the non-for-profit space, that always wasn't the mandate. And I'm good friends with Carleen Donnelly from CUPS, and he became so data oriented, and she, the work she did with Harvard. And I was always so impressed because as a business person, that made so much sense to me. She's like, Tyler, you'd be scared to hear the resistance we get sometimes of putting data on this in the way you would maybe develop a business case.
For sure. We are very much, and I have utmost respect for Carleen. She's
a lovely lady. She's a lovely human being.
And we are very much a data-driven organization. And, part of the challenge is nobody wants to fund technology, right? Yeah. So
because it looks like it's not helping. Yeah, right. Mm-hmm.
Everybody wants their money to go directly to the program. They don't want it to fund electricity or benefits or computer technology or finance or HR processes, right? So it's interesting because the expectation is that we operate like a business, but under very different constraints,
under financial duress all the time.
And as a corporation, if I'm a shareholder, I don't get to tell the corporation where my share goes.
Yeah.
Right.
You trust that leadership makes the best decision to elevate the value that's being created. Right. Ultimately.
Or if I go to a restaurant, when I pay my bill, I can't say, "Oh, this can only go to the chef." Right. But that's
that's a great comparison. I understand that with the not for you want it, because back to the point about I want that connection. And I think there was quite a few ad campaigns a few years ago where fund a goat or fund a well, or it was so specific, which I get it where the donor could go, oh, I see my benefit, but that actually the long-term play of that actually hurts the sector.
It does. It weakens the organization. If you don't have strong infrastructure, you can't possibly be effective. Like you can't.
Yeah, let alone at a problem that's scaling all the time around you, right?
And yet the expectation of many donors is that you keep your admin fees less than 10%.
Yeah.
I'm not sure of any successful businesses that do that.
Oh, Sandra, we've landed on a very shared belief here. I think I've referenced Dan Pilata before, but a speaker out of the
Mm-hmm.
US. And I think I came across a YouTube video of his, like, I don't know, 10 or 15 years ago. And it just seems so
I'm
obvious to
familiar.
me.
Yeah.
Yeah. And for anyone who hasn't, I would recommend give it a search and give it a listen. And he really pushes aggressively with numbers to back it up of how much more successful we could be at solving some of these social challenges that we have and helping people at a greater level if we truly operated more like a business. And his case for it is it's hard to shoot holes in it because he has the numbers to back it up in spades. He has a couple of TED Talks, I think, that are great. Mhm.
Yeah, and his uncharitable movie as well.
Oh, I haven't seen that
It's,
one. Okay,
yeah.
I'll check that out. Uncharitable. I really like that. But to your point about how do we educate, how do we change the mindsets, but I also at the same time, nothing like a newer group of donors to maybe be open to a different mindset. Like we're always re-educating the McDonald's model. We're
Hmm.
always getting you in when you're young and try to keep you forever. That's a bad comparison. So we'll go back to the river comparison. But it's like how do we take a younger donor who's looking to do things differently and maybe doesn't want to just do things the way their parents did it, as we all want to forge
Yeah.
our new path. How do we get more bought into that we can create bigger change by maybe thinking about this thing differently? That gets me excited as a donor for sure.
Hmm. Hmm. Well, and I think there's no one answer to that, right?
No.
So I think first of all, let's talk to the young people. Find out what do you want? What would get you engaged, right? I think it
While also educating around this paradigm of maybe let's think about this differently too. Like let's not lose
100%.
the chance to maybe educate a new way of thinking,
Yeah,
or just
indeed.
a
Yeah.
curiosity about a new way of approaching things.
Hmm. Hmm.
Oh,
And I think it
Sandra, I think
really
we were
is
both
that.
getting we're fighting for the soapbox now.
Well, that's a
I
good
love
conversation.
I love a new way. Yes, touche. I love a new way of thinking about what is, a challenge that's not going away. And you don't want, I love your NIMBY comment about you're saying no to this, but what do you, I'm not saying yes to that. Well, indirectly you are. Think
Hmm.
through, think a little bit longer than the no, because no is easy because it stops the thinking. Yes
That's
is
right.
like, oh, but then let's be honest, it's often yes and, or it should be no and, I think as well too, not this binary. Oh no, so therefore
Hmm.
I will not think about it. You just said yes to this, this, and this. That hit me. Like when you repositioned it that way, I felt that.
Good. That's great.
I love a good podcast when people go, I maybe need to rethink
Like
how
I'm
I'm
going to
thinking
keep
about
using
things.
that. Yeah.
Please do. That was powerful. Sandra, thanks for your honesty, obviously for the work you do and just being willing to, you rolled up your sleeves a little bit. I felt it. I felt that moment where the soapbox came out and I really appreciate it. That's the kind of content I love on the show because I want people to walk away and go, I don't know what I think now, but I'm open to maybe thinking about things differently. And that's what more can you ask with a good communication or maybe just changing the way I've always parked it on the shelf to mean this. Maybe it can mean something different.
Well, thank you. I have really enjoyed the conversation, and as you can tell, I'm really passionate about the work that we do. I'm very passionate about our city and making it great for everyone. So really
Yes.
appreciate your time.
We're in it together, whether we like it or not. Like,
It's
so
true.
let's embrace it. Mhm. Um,
Indeed.
Drop-ins, calgarydropin.ca website. Go check. Big donate button on the top corner. It's super simple, not complicated. Click on it, find what matters to you in this context, and donate. If someone wants to reach out and chat with you, are you a LinkedIn person? Do you like email? Do you have a preferred in all the million ways we communicate now?
Yes, I have a LinkedIn profile. Generally tend to shy away from social,
Okay. For all
just
that's
because.
there's a lot of reasons to do that. We'll just leave
But
that.
in saying that, I will respond.
Thank you.
So LinkedIn is probably the best way.
Okay, amazing. I do think LinkedIn is that one social platform that really hasn't fully delved into where maybe some of the other ones live, but let's just leave.
Hmm.
That's a conversation for another day and maybe a glass of wine. I don't know. Sandra, it was really nice meeting you, and thanks for telling the story and sharing some of your passions. I really enjoyed it. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Tyler.